Rabbi Yossi originally came to Sydney from New York before returning to New York a couple of years later, but he never forgot Australia and he was drawn back to Adelaide, where he has been for 21 years. After years of being the rabbi at the Orthodox shul there, he established the Chabad house, and he's the only traditional rabbi in the region. Rabbi Yossi, you're a person in a big city with a small Jewish community. How do you impact the broadest number of Jews, and how does one Jewish person impact another?
Great question, Tali. Thanks for the opportunity. The Talmud tells us a story of Rabbi Chia, who wrote Torah scrolls and used them to teach children. These children taught others, and Torah awareness spread. The effect was so far-reaching that the Talmud credits this Rabbi Chia with having preserved Torah tradition, no less. In our community, and I suspect in other Chabad communities, we try to harness the energy of community members, empowering them to reach out to others who in turn affect even more people. There are too many stories, so let me share a couple of stories, if only briefly. A Jewish boy by the name of Israel moves from the land of Israel to England with his family. He grows up, I think where you're from, is that correct? Okay. He grows up going to shul. He marries a non-Jewish girl and stays away from the religion for 40 years so that each doesn't impose their faith on the other and confuse the kids. He moves to Adelaide, and he and his wife are touched by the warm welcome that we shared. She is excited to convert. They keep kosher, Shabbat, he prays 3 times a day. However, it wasn't to last. One of their 3 children came from Perth and felt unwelcome in their newly Jewish home. So they pulled away from observance and moved out of town, and I didn't know where to. Let me share a seemingly separate story, but it wasn't separate at all. Joshua lives 3 hours away from Adelaide. He went to a Christian seminary to become a priest, but rejected the Trinity and thus rejected Christianity. The two couldn't work together. Years later, he discovered his Jewish heritage. We begin studying Torah on the phone once a week. As a pastry chef, he makes the whole town know that Purim is coming with Hamantashen. Every Jewish festival knows that what the Jewish festival is a town of 9,000. Meanwhile, in a town of 9,000, he only has one true friend. A year after they met, these 2 friends find out that they're both the only 2 Jews in town. Joshua and Israel become good friends. It turns out, because Israel moved down there, it turns out that this is a match made in heaven. From that point on, Israel is teaching all the knowledge that he has, Hebrew, Torah, to Joshua, and Joshua is inspiring him to once again join his faith, join him for Shabbos, join him for festivals. Each uplifted the other with their unique blessings. You can't make this stuff up. That was one story of many. People join our phone and web classes in Adelaide from hundreds and even thousands of kilometers away. Each are leaders, that's the beautiful point. Each become leaders in their own towns. One couple housed visiting rabbis and arranged to build a Jewish cemetery. Another gathers children 400 kilometers away, west from us, in Eyre Peninsula, gathers children from afar to study Torah. A third welcomes Jewish travelers in their northern Victorian region. A fourth created a Sunday Hebrew school far away from here. One such story of people inspiring those close to them, I'll share one more. When more than 70 Jewish tombstones were desecrated in Adelaide in 1995, the community was obviously shaken up. An unobservant Jewish woman felt moved to attend the memorial service. While there, she saw the tombstone of her great-grandmother, whose Jewish name she carried. Instantly, she felt a deep sense of identification with her namesake, and in her heart and soul reconnected to her faith. She bought her daughter a Jewish book, the first book that she knew. A rabbi helped her. She got a storybook, a book about the lives of Talmudic sages. Excited about the Jewish way of life and their own Jewish identity, this young girl begged her mother to take her to synagogue. They began attending the liberal temple. When my wife Chani and I arrived from Brooklyn, I heard that the classic Hasidic work Tanya was printed in Adelaide some 14 years earlier at the behest of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and that the Rebbe specifically wanted a Torah teacher there. He paid for a teacher to fly to Adelaide from Melbourne on a monthly basis for 2 years to teach Tanya, to a few people, mind you. So when I came to Adelaide, naturally, I wanted to continue that now not continued, discontinued Tanya class. The mother in the story we mentioned before, the mother in that story of the family who was just rediscovered her Yiddishkeit, joined the Tanya class. As a psychiatrist, a very brilliant one, she truly appreciated the rich psychology and spirituality of Hasidic philosophy. She began to keep kosher, bought a house near the shul to keep Shabbos, and found her way to observance, to become Torah observant. What's interesting is her mother, the grandmother in this family, was touched by the beauty of her daughter's Shabbos table and Torah life. She rejoined the traditional shul and regularly attended classes, prayers, became very involved. Her grandmother, the great-grandmother in this family, for the first time in 70 years, joined her granddaughter for Rosh Hashanah. She started crying. This is how my mother made Rosh Hashanah. Her sister looked at her, a great aunt in the family. This is exactly how our mother made Rosh Hashanah. This same great-grandmother, when some family members came out against the young mother and her children in following tradition, the great-grandmother, who was the consummate professional, very private, usually very private about her faith, was surprisingly unequivocal on a sick bed in the hospital. She got strong. She turned to her granddaughter and she said, continue on your path. You're right. The others that are against you are not. My parents and grandparents lived this way, and they'd be so proud of how you are living in their way. I completely support you. The young girls in this family went to Chabad high schools. One even went on to study in the seminary in Israel. They married fine Jewish men and set up beautiful Jewish homes. The mother married a Hasidic man. She now teaches Tanya, writes articles on the web all over the world. They read her stuff, inspiring many others to follow in her spiritual journey. Where a neo-Nazi desecration led a Jewish mother back to her Jewish roots, only to then touch a child, her mother again, the grandmother and the great-grandmother, to find their way back home.
What an amazing story. Now we've seen two stories, how awful situations have actually created amazing, amazing outcomes. So thank you for sharing those with us. And also thank you for showing us how we can uplift and inspire each other, and for continuing your work in Adelaide, even when there are opportunities overseas and it means missing out on important things like your daughter's wedding in New York yesterday.
Thanks so much.